Welcome back to Andersen Acres. If you've ever seen a goat that looks like it's been sneaking into the weight room after chores, odds are you've met a Boer. These goats are the heavy hitters of the goat world. Solid, broad, and built with the kind of muscle that makes you look twice. They don't just amble across a pasture, they own it. From their Roman noses to their blocky frames, Boer goats carry themselves like they know they're the top of the meat goat pyramid. And honestly, they're not wrong. The Boer goat got its start in South Africa, where farmers needed a breed that could handle the heat, resist disease, and thrive in the kind of dry, sparse environments that make pickier animals turn up their noses. Local African goats already had the toughness, but farmers wanted more growth and a little more meat on the bone. So they crossed those hardy native goats with European dairy breeds, particularly those with faster growth rates and solid mothering instincts. The result was the Boer, named after the Dutch word for farmer. And right from the beginning, this was a farmer's goat through and through. Boers didn't need pampering or special treatment. They grazed on whatever was available. They raised strong, healthy kids, and they made a name for themselves by simply getting the job done. When they arrived on the global scene in the 1990s, people realized that South African farmers had been sitting on one of the best goat breeds ever developed for meat production. Now you can spot a Boer from across the field. The classic look is a clean, white body paired with that rich red or brown head. The color line stopping somewhere right around the shoulder, kind of like they're wearing a fancy little jacket. Their ears are long and pendulous. Their noses have that distinct Roman curve, and they've got horns that sweep backward in graceful arcs. Even their stance screams confidence. Legs square, chest wide, tail flicking lazily like they've got all day to impress you. And they do. Of course, looks only go so far on a working farm. What really makes Boers stand out is the combination of muscle and temperament. These goats are calm, easy to handle, and surprisingly affectionate once they know you. They're also not big on drama, which is saying something in the goat world. If you've ever dealt with loud, attention-seeking Nubians who think every feeding time is an emergency, you'll appreciate the quiet dignity of a Boer. They just get on with things. And while many goats have a reputation for being escape artists, Boers are usually more interested in food than mischief. That's not to say they can't climb a fence. They can. But they're less likely to do it just for the thrill of seeing you panic. Give them plenty of hay, a good mineral block, and enough space to browse, and they'll be content to stay wherever you put them. The first time you see a Boer up close, what strikes you is their sheer mass. These are not dainty animals. A mature buck can weigh 250 to 300 pounds. That's more than my mini horse. They have thick shoulders and a barrel chest. The does are smaller, of course, but even they're sturdier and more muscular than most other breeds of goat. You can see why people call them the beef cattle of the goat world. Every inch of them looks built for purpose. But what makes them even more impressive is how adaptable they are. Boers thrive in hot, arid regions, which makes sense given their origins, but they can also handle colder climates as long as they've got shelter from the wind and the rain. I've seen Boers out grazing on frosty mornings, steaming gently in the sunrise like they don't even notice the chill. Their thick hides and dense coats give them a surprising edge in variable weather, though they'll thank you for a dry barn and a snowstorm. On the subject of weather, one of the reasons Boers became so popular in North America and in Australia is their ability to handle extremes. They'll do just fine in scorching summer heat, provided there's shade and water. And while they aren't fond of mud, they're less prone to hoof problems than some other breeds. Their strong hooves and legs reflect that same South African practicality, built for walking long distances over rough ground in search of feed. Now, one thing you'll learn quickly if you raise Boers: they're food motivated. I mean, really food motivated. They'll follow a bucket like it's the Holy Grail. And while that makes them easy to move, it also means you've got to watch their grain intake. Boers can put on weight faster than you'd expect, And if you overfeed, you'll end up with goats that look more like barrels on legs than livestock. Controlled feeding and good pasture rotation are key to keeping them healthy and productive. Speaking of productivity, let's talk reproduction. Boer does are famously fertile. They can breed year round, though most farms stick to more controlled breeding seasons. Twins are really common, triplets aren't unusual, and every once in a while you'll see a quad. Better yet, Boer moms are exceptional caretakers. They're watchful, attentive, and fiercely protective of their kids. I've seen Boer does who wouldn't let so much as a barn cat come within 10 feet of their babies. That maternal instinct is one of the reasons they're so popular for crossbreeding programs. Those genetics pass along good mothering traits to other lines. And that brings us to one of the most interesting parts of Boer breeding, their influence on global goat herds. Farmers love to cross Boers with other breeds to improve growth rate, muscle tone, and feed efficiency. You'll find Boer crosses with Kiko, Spanish, Nubian, and even dairy breeds like the Saughan and the Alpine. Those hybrids often get the best of both worlds. Fast growth and resilience combined with good milk supply for raising their babies. If you see a goat that looks half beefy and half ballerina, chances are there's some Boer blood in there. But make no mistake, purebred Boers are still the gold standard. Their meat yield and muscle-to-bone ratio are unmatched, and their calm disposition makes them favorites for both small farms and commercial operations. They're the kind of goats that make you look like a good farmer, even on days when nothing else is going right. Another perk of having Boers is how well they get along in mixed herds. They don't usually start trouble, and they're confident enough not to be bullied. That balance makes them great herd anchors, the goats that seem to bring a little order to the chaos. You'll often see them grazing side by side with more nervous breeds, setting a steady pace and keeping everyone calm. It's like they're the barnyard version of that friend who just quietly fixes things without making a big fuss. You might be wondering whether Boers make good pets. The answer depends on your definition of pet. If you want a lap goat, probably not. If you want a friendly, easygoing companion who's happy to follow you around the pasture and accept the occasional ear scratch, then yeah, absolutely. Boer goats can be affectionate and social without being clingy. They're really great for families who want an animal that's sturdy, predictable, and not easily spooked by kids running around or dogs barking in the distance. Of course, Boers also have their quirks. For one thing, they're not quite as nimble as their lighter cousins. You won't see them balancing on top of hay bales or scaling your feed room shelves, which is honestly a relief. They're far more ground-oriented, happy to stay in the field and chew their cud and give you that side eye that says, "You forgot to refill the mineral bucket again, didn't ya?" They're also surprisingly expressive. You can tell a lot about a Boer's mood from its ears and tail. A relaxed Boer has its ears slightly forward, tail up, but not stiff. An annoyed Boer, say one that just realized you shorted them on their feed ration, they'll flick their tail like it's sending Morse code. Spend enough time with them and you'll start to recognize these little things. You'll know the difference between I'm content, I'm curious, and I'm plotting. When it comes to health, Boers are generally robust. They can be prone to overeating disease if you're not careful with the grain, and they'll sometimes develop foot issues if kept in damp conditions. But compared to more delicate breeds, they're tough as nails. A little common sense, some dry shelter, balanced diet, and good parasite management goes a long way with these guys. So whether you're building a breeding program, expanding your herd, or just daydreaming about adding goats to your life, the Boer deserves a spot on your short list. They're strong, hardy, and downright beautiful, with a temperament that makes them a joy to manage. They embody the best of what goats can be. Useful, gentle, and just mischievous enough to keep you humble. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. Drop a comment below if you've ever raised or worked with Boer goats, or if you're thinking about adding them to your own herd and have questions about what they're really like. We'll see you tomorrow.